Hey everybody, Travis here with The Way of the Arborist, and on today's episode we're going to talk a little bit about chainsawing in the tree, the right way and the wrong way. So, one of the biggest things with chainsawing in the tree is, a lot of people like to use top handle chainsaws, little arborist chainsaws that are designed to be used in the tree. And with those saws, it's very easy to just simply cut the limb with one hand. And there's a lot of people that do that. And, you're technically supposed to operate the saw with two hands at all times, and if you read the manual, it says right there on the chainsaw manual for any chainsaw, you have to operate with two hands. So it's not worth, people think they can't get out far enough on the limb to cut where they need to, or it's too hard to get there, or it's too much work, or whatever the case may be, or they don't want to spend the time. So they just get far enough out on the limb, and then they just reach out with the chainsaw and they cut one-handed with that top handle saw. And, because it's just easier to do that for them. And this really becomes a crutch. It becomes an excuse to, cut corners and just, skimp on safety because you can just do it real quick one-handed. And that is really a horrible practice. A lot of people get into it. Done it once, they were fine. Everything went fine. They perceived it to be safe. So they just do it again. And even if they know it's dangerous, they just do it anyway. They think, oh, I've done it so many times that, I can just, I'll just keep doing it. I know this is dangerous. I know I shouldn't be doing it this way, but I've done it so many times, whatever, When there's wiggle room with the top handle saw, the temptation is there for people to operate it one-handed. And a lot of people they do really feel like there's no other way. There's no way I could reach this limb without doing it this way. How could I get to the limb? It's like the only way to reach out and cut this limb is using it one-handed. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do it. And it's like, you know what? There are other ways to do that. There's ways to accomplish cutting that limb without having to, deal with the chainsaw issue at all. I mean, if you really can't reach the limb at all, then get yourself in a good position somewhere in the tree where you can cut that limb with a pull saw, Or if you can get close enough to the limb and enough to reach it with one hand, then cut it with your hand saw. I have a super sharp hand saw. I use it for so many things in the tree, and more things than I do the chainsaw, to be honest. But if I'm really in that kind of weird, awkward situation where I'm really way out on a limb and it really is that difficult, I'll reach out with my handsaw and cut it, and it's like, maybe it takes a little extra time. Maybe it's kind of like labor intensive. It's harder work. It's a little bit larger in diameter. You know what? You're already there. Just cut it with the handsaw. A lot of climbs, if I know I have a lot of chainsaw work to do and I know it's a lot of large diameter, dead wooding, need to take a lot of dead out of the tree or whatever, or other scenarios, I'll bring up like a steel 180, and that's the gas power, a little bit bigger, but still light enough to kind of climb around with pretty relatively easily. And, again, that's a little bigger saw, so you have to use two hands. So, when it comes to positioning to make that happen, you want to have 3 points of attachment. You want to have your climbing line, and you want to have two lanyards. For any of you who are rocking, one lanyard, forget that. Move on and get yourself 2-in-1 lanyard. Seriously, we'll dive into this deeper, but this ties in to chainsawing and in the tree. If you can get 3 points of attachment, then you're going to have really good positioning to cut that limb with two hands safely in a comfortable way. And you've got one lanyard going out this way, another lanyard going out that way, and you're triangulated in those, but you also have your main, tie-in point going up above you. And so you're triangulated comfortably between all three of these lines. You have a good, solid position. And you have good footing. That's crucial. And then you can, you're not straining at all. You're sitting back in your harness nice and easy. That's how you want to be when you reach out to grab your, fire up your chainsaw and make the cut. then you're making the cut easily and effortlessly. That's what you want. And even if you're in some really awkward position, or it looks awkward, to somebody looking at you, you're in a weird place to make a cut. It's kind of a funky spot. You're in a weird position. You can still get triangulated in with your 3 points of attachment in such a way to where, though, even though it looks awkward, you can still, cut comfortably. You want to make sure you have extremely good footing. Like, that's one of the biggest things. What are your feet on? Are they on, dead material that could break, a dead branch that could break, a weak limb, weakly attachable limb you're standing on, all these kind of things. And if you're not standing on anything, you're standing on straight bark, what's the angle of your foot? Is your foot going to slip at all? Seriously, that's really crucial. If you have a slip, you're asking for problems when you're running the chainsaw and you have a slip. And also, if your climbing line is overlapping branches or twigs, and your climbing line's leaning on branches as it's going up to the tie-in point, branches that can break, take a look at how the climbing line is situated and look at what's around it. Is there anything that can break and cause that climbing line to slip a little bit? And if that climbing line slips, that means you're going to slip. You need to make sure that your lines are nice and tight, and that you've got your good positioning in your harness, and that your climbing line's not going to break on limbs, or branches, twigs aren't going to snap, and that your footing is super solid. And then, all that's, check mark for all those things. Get that chainsaw out and cut away with 2 hands. When you're cutting, in between every single cut, every single time, you want to make sure that you chain break in between each cut. No way around it. Don't avoid it. Make that a habit for sure. And so that you don't even have to think about it at all. You just automatically put on the chain break, and you're automatically tied in the right way, and you automatically have good footing. So you're automatically cutting with 2 hands. So you're not straining yourself when you're cutting, because you just have developed these good habits. So same thing with the chain break. Make sure to chain break every single time. And when it comes to positioning and chainsawing in the tree, you also want to be, it goes without saying, but it can't be repeated enough. You really want to be 110,000% sure that your saw is no way, shape, or form going to cut into your lines. This is another reason to have 3 points of attachment, because if you cut one of your lines, you got 2 others, not just one. Or if you cut through 2 lines, oh my gosh, then you still got another line. You can see how beneficial in so many ways a 2-in-1 lanyard is, plus your climbing line and having those 3 points of attachment. So you want to make sure at all times that the position you're in and where you're cutting from, that your lines are not in the way, and that your saw is going to be, headed a direction where it's not going to touch your lines. Make sure your body's out of the way, and also make sure when you're cutting the limb that the limb's not going to strike you when the branch hits you or whatever. How's that going to affect your position? Are you going to slip? Are you going to drop you lose your control of the chainsaw? That's crucial too as well. Make sure you're in a good position to protect yourself from the chainsaw. Make sure your legs are out of the way, and you make sure your ropes are out of the way, and also make sure that your body's out of the way of where the limb's going to fall, how gravity's going to take that limb. Okay? So, and also, a tip when it comes to chainsawing in the tree, but you can't always get away with this because safety first, 100% all the time. But if you make an overcut, ideally you want to kind of have your body above that cut, or upwind of the cut, if there's a breeze, because then it'll take the shavings and shoot them either below you, or the wind will carry them away. But if you're cutting with the chainsaw raised up a little bit, kind of chest level, and you're reaching out, you're making a cut, and you're making an overcut, cutting with the bottom of the bar, that's going to send a bunch of, sawdust flying at you from spitting out the bottom of the saw. It's going to fly at you. So if you're cutting a little bit lower, or your positioning is a little bit above your saw, then you're going to be flinging, chips, sawdust at your waistline, or at your legs, at your shoes, rather than in your face, or in your collar, going down into your shirt. That's just not Not good. So, and sometimes you can't avoid, I'm going to be honest, sometimes you're just going to get sawdust flying at your face, and that's just how it's going to be. And obviously you have eye protection and all these things to protect yourself, maybe a net gaiter, whatever. Anyway, you don't want to be kicking sawdust at your face if you can help it. And sometimes the wind happens to just switch, blow in your face while you're freaking making the cut. Or you can't be in a position where you can be on the upwind side, or whatever the story is, but a lot of times you can prevent it, and you can by getting in a better position. And if you make an undercut, it has to be in the right situations. But if you make an undercut, the saw will shoot the sawdust away from you entirely, rather than spitting it out the bottom and shooting it at you. And so I love making, when I'm on the ground and in the tree, I love making undercuts in certain situations, when the wind is not in my favor, or when there's no wind at all and it's just more, sawdusty or whatever. And I'll make an undercut and shoot those chips away from me. And, but undercuts can be sketchy. You have to push the bar into the limb to make it cut the limb. If you don't push the bar, it's just like, and you kind of, you can get in trouble with things like kickback and different things if you're not really paying attention. But if you have good technique, you can do it well, for sure. You just got to put a little bit of pressure into the saw and push it into the limb. And make an undercut. And obviously cutting big limbs with undercuts, that's dumb. You'll just pinch your bar. I mean, we're not talking about that here. We're talking about small diameter stuff, where you can easily do it. And when your saw is making an undercut, your hands are in a good, proper positioning. You're not like turning the saw upside down or doing something dumb. You know what I mean? You're making an easy, ergonomic undercut. Then you keep that sawdust away from you. It's fantastic. And when you got to do it, and the only way to do it safely is to make an overcut, and that's how you're going to be safe. And there's no other way around it. Let that sawdust hit you, whatever, okay? Just make the proper cut. Do it the right way when there's no other way, okay? But when it's easy to, sure, do an undercut. And then you don't even have that sawdust flying at you. So, pretty much this is the story when it comes to the right way of using a chainsaw in the tree. If you just do this all the time, all these methods, you're going to be in good shape. And one last thing about that, if you aren't comfortable climbing around in the tree properly, you have no business running a chainsaw up there. That's definitely the wrong way to do it. It comes, climbing and learning how to climb and getting efficient at climbing comes first, then chainsawing in the tree. Don't just try to be some dumbass hotshot and get up there and, you don't even know what you're doing in the tree, and you're dragging the chainsaw up there and you're making cuts. Don't do any of that. Learn to climb first. Learn good positioning. What's the point of climbing inefficiently and having horrible positioning and straining your body and then trying to reach out and making a cut, much less one-handed, right? What's the point of all that when you can get your climbing down and get comfortable and get ergonomic with your motions and use less energy, and then you can cut efficiently and effectively and safely. Then you can lead by example too, doing it the safest way, the best way. You can show other people how to do this the right way. So, yep, that's chainsawing in the tree, the right way to do it. And I really appreciate y'all watching. I hope I've covered, most everything. Wear hearing protection. Don't skimp on that. It just wears you out, stresses you out more if you don't, plus you're required to. So definitely do that. And, be safe with that chainsaw, develop good habits, and you'll do great. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. And I will look forward to the next episode with you and sharing with you soon. And in the meantime, stay safe out there. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you. Bye for now.